So just imagine that in your spine, there's jelly donuts segmented in between your vertebrae, and under load, one of mine decided to just... Hey, what's up y'all, Vincent here. So if you've been actively involved in the fitness space for any amount of time, then you'll find out that part of the culture is just memeing the possibility of getting injured lifting with heavy weight or bad form, when the reality is just muscle soreness. People will make jokes about their joints, muscles, and spine snapping in half from lifting heavy ass weight. Well, after playing a part in that and making a number of jokes myself, I actually reached that point.
I broke my back, spinal.
So in today's video, I'm going to be covering this herniated disc that I've been dealing with for a number of months now. To be quite frank, this is the most debilitating injury that I've ever had, and I want to describe in detail how it's affected me and what I've been doing to deal with it. So let's dive into exactly what happened. If you've been following me for a while now, then you should know that my primary form of fitness is calisthenics. But back in the day, I used to do a good amount of powerlifting. I was lifting a good amount of weight in those movements as well as some other ones. And I've never had a major injury, maybe just a few minor ones, but definitely a lot of muscle soreness. So I'd say because of my training, my core and lower back strength were pretty solid. But I was still dealing with the occasional back soreness, most likely from a combination of a lot of intense physical training and a lot of sitting around. So one of the exercises that I started to incorporate to strengthen my lower back was the Jefferson curl. This is basically a weighted toe touch where you deliberately round your lower back so you strengthen those muscles during the movement. This is mainly supposed to be like a stretching movement where you use at most 10 to 15% of your body weight, and you're supposed to go slow and controlled. So if we go back to July 2021, I was doing my Jefferson curls and I was feeling myself a little bit. So I decided to bump up the weight a little bit and do it with 20-pound dumbbells in each hand. For the first few reps, I felt a lot of stress in my lower back as well as a little bit of rippling. So that should have been a cause for concern, but I decided to keep going on. Now, since I physically can't recreate this moment, here's a parody of what happened next.
This is fine. I'm okay with the events that are unfolding currently.
My back. Oh, my back.
Okay, so as someone who used to deadlift like this, squat over 400 pounds like this, and deadlift over 500 pounds on the regular, it must be extremely ironic to have this injury happen with such little weight, doing a movement that was supposed to strengthen the area that I injured. What basically happened was on the top of the stretch of another rep, I felt a sharp pain, and that instantly prompted me to drop the dumbbells and fall down to the ground. At that point, I felt a mix of shock, anger, and frustration because I knew I just seriously injured myself. I probably laid on the ground for like 3 to 4 minutes just comprehending what happened before getting up to put the dumbbells away one at a time. My back had become so compromised at this point that I considered asking someone else to help me out, but I was already so uptight about getting injured that I just wanted to take care of things and get out of there. So the immediate symptoms after injuring my back were excruciating and lasting pain that made it very hard for me to move. It hurt like a no matter what position I was in, whether I was laying down, sitting, or standing up. I was basically shuffling my feet or taking very slow steps to move around. And I was unable to lift or hold anything above like 5 pounds or so without excruciating pain. Now, because I've had like a number of random injuries in the gym before, I chalked this up as another one of those that would heal up in like a short amount of time. I basically self-diagnosed this injury as a back sprain, aka I completely blew my back out, and I was reassured that it wasn't a major injury as over the next few weeks the pain was gradually decreasing. Within a few weeks I was back in the gym doing workouts with 10-pound dumbbells or so, and I was able to walk normally. At the 8-week point, I was able to do push-ups again. I also tried getting back into playing basketball. I was able to get back to shooting around with slight pain at around the 2-month mark, and a few weeks after that, I was back to doing full court runs. On the 3rd month, I was able to do pull-ups again with a little bit of pain, and by the 4th month, I had regained full mobility and had minor but manageable pain. However, I still had some tightness and that pinching feeling in my spine the entire time. So at that point, I knew that this injury was beyond just a simple muscle sprain. So I went to my doctor and expected to get an MRI, but instead I was just referred to a PT who told me I had a herniated disc. So now let me give you a little bit of an anatomy lesson and contextualize this injury based on how I felt and what I've learned from both my PT and the internet. So basically your spine is like this segmented bone, and each of these segments are called vertebrae. And in between each vertebrae, there's a low rubbery disc that gives it support under load. And when a disc gets stressed too much, it can crack open like a jelly donut, and then the loose residue can pinch the nerves right outside of it. Now, depending on which direction this disc dislodges in, the symptoms and treatment can differ. So in my case, I injured my back pushing my spine forwards, so my disc herniated backwards and thus became a bulging disc. Now, I still don't have an MRI done, but based on where my current pain is and what other people have noted, this is definitely in the lumbar area, and it's probably the L4, L5. In some cases, the herniation can cause nerve pain that goes down the legs, and this is called sciatica. Unfortunately for me, I don't have that. So from what I've read, no matter how I treat this injury, the integrity of my spine will never be as strong as it was before, and there may be a chance that my disc can rupture again, which is a very bleak truth that I have to accept. So what are my treatment options? The quickest and most expensive option was just to get surgery on it. However, that didn't seem like a very good option to me because of the potential complications from having that surgery, as well as just having my flexibility and strength be negatively affected by either having my disc removed or having my spine fused together at that point. My back is already, but having the surgery can make it even worse. So the second option would be to just rehab it while giving it time to recover. So based on what I found on the internet, what should happen is that the loose residue that spilled out of the disc should gradually rehydrate until the hole gets sealed back with scar tissue. Depending on the severity of this injury, this process should take months, if not years, to complete. In the meantime, I can do certain exercises to alleviate back pain and assist in the recovery process. So now that I've basically self-diagnosed myself again, I'll cover how this injury currently affects me and what I've been doing for recovery. As of now, it'll have been almost 9 months since I injured my back. I've regained full mobility and have no pain, but I still have that noticeable pinching and tightness in the lumbar area. The pain in the injured area is relatively minor and manageable, but depending on certain activities, it can definitely increase. While this injury doesn't really affect my ability to move around and do day-to-day activities, it's definitely affected what I can do in the gym. First and foremost, my spine lacks complete structural integrity through the lumbar area. Think of your spine as your body's shock absorber, and mine has a crack down there. If you know anything about physics, then you should know that Newton's third law plays a huge part in here. Basically, any force exertion has an equal and opposite reaction. Any force that goes vertically in my body will be felt in my spine. So that means if I'm holding something or if I have pressure either going upwards or downwards on my body, I'm gonna feel that in that area. That means pain when I do any type of loaded carry or when I do any type of jump. So that means setting limitations on the amount of weight I can carry, not doing weighted loaded movements such as squats, and not doing as much plyometric movements to limit my pain. Second point, I'm unable to lift anything heavy without pain. This injury is a strength limiter. Basically, I can't do any powerlifting, which I'm not doing anyways. But it's still really sad how weak I am in those movements. But even if I try, the amount of weight that I can lift is absolutely pathetic. My limit is basically 1 plate on the bench, squat, and deadlift. So those are completely out of my routine. So the best movements for me right now are ones that put minimal pressure on my spine. Upper back heavy movements such as pull-ups and lat pulls are fine for me, as well as any movement where I can distribute force through my back into either a seat, a bench, or the floor. This also means no weighted body weight movements for me. RIP the 4-plate dips. Third point, my spine is unable to flex forward without pain. So that means I'm heavily deterred from doing any crunching movements or any movements that round my lower spine or my pelvis. Movements that I would be training but no longer can include the L-sit, ab rollout, pistol squats, and any toe touch movements. Yeah, I don't think I'll ever want to do a Jefferson curl ever again. And the fourth point, any unsupported overhead pressing movements will cause me lots of pain. Again, referring to Newton's third law, if I were to press upwards, I would feel a lot of force coming downwards. Because of this, my spine is always compromised when I do anything shoulder related above my head. This has caused my shoulders to become a weak point in my body, and I've basically stopped all overhead pressing movements minus like seated shoulder press. This unfortunately means I also can't progress my handstand. It's funny because I have tried handstand stuff after my injury, and while my ability has actually improved, it's come at the cost of turning my spine into an accordion. But here's what I can still do. I can do pull-ups. I can do explosive pull-ups. I can still work on my front lever. I can do completely vertical dips. I can still do some push-ups. And I can still work on my planche. My wrists are now the strongest muscle in my body. Thank God I'm not a powerlifter anymore. As for PT, which is physical therapy and movements that alleviate back pain, here's what I've been doing. First is spinal decompression, and it's done by simply holding a pull-up bar that's low enough so that your feet can be planted. It's important that your feet are on the ground and not in the air. Once you're in this position, then you pull straight down for your spine to loosen it up. The focus here should be keeping the spine as vertical as possible and exerting force through the vertebrae. I do this before any exercise that requires lower back stability or whenever I need immediate relief. I'll usually hold this for around 30 to 45 seconds because any longer and it will actually start hurting my back instead of relieving it. Next is the Cobra push-up. This is done by starting from a front laying position and then extending your arms to push your torso up while keeping your hips and legs on the floor. You're basically applying force into the lower back to counteract the pain from back rounding. So in this case, the bulging disc. The goal is to push your torso up as high as possible while keeping the hips and the pelvis on the floor. So adjust your hand positions as you see fit. Usually, I'll be really tight during my first few reps, but the range of motion should increase as my back loosens up. My PT recommended me to do 4 rounds of 2 sets of 10 reps per day, but since I now know that this exercise only helps with relief and not recovery, I only do them occasionally, usually with a round after my main workout. It's important that this exercise is done for reps and not duration, as an extended hold causes prolonged pressure on the spine. And as a supplement to the Cobra push-up, I've also been doing straight back extensions during my workouts as well. This is another movement that strengthens the lower back by counteracting against the lumbar spine. The focus is to keep your spine completely straight during the whole movement. So don't round your back at the bottom and don't hyperextend at the top. After my Cobra push-ups, I'll do a set of glute bridges. The aim is to push the hips as high up as possible. I'll do 2 sets of 1-minute holds after my Cobra push-ups, and depending on how I feel, I can intensify the stretch by sticking one leg out, and I'll alternate halfway through the set. One main aspect of my recovery has been ab training. The abs usually exert and maintain force opposite of the lower back, and thus they can overcompensate for them as well. Since I can't do any crunching movements, I'll instead do static movements such as side planks, dragon flag stuff, and also weighted planks. While I am physically able to do stressful horizontal ab movements, as you can see by me training my front lever and doing dragon flags, they still hurt like a and I can feel the herniated disc preventing me from being as strong as I should be. And lastly, I'd call this aspect mindful ergonomics. This herniated disc has made me realize that sitting for long periods of time tightens the out of my back like a slow playing accordion. Because of that, I try to stand up every once in a while to relax it a bit, maybe even stretch it out with things at home. I also bought this back stretcher thing off Amazon to see if it would help. While I don't really have the propensity to use it on the floor, I do use it as a backseat cushion every now and then, just to apply some forward pressure onto my back while sitting for long periods of time. So yeah, That's my herniated disc story. I wanted to share this for multiple reasons. First, I wanted to show the ramifications of actually messing your back up from ego lifting. Second, I wanted to go in depth on what someone with this injury is actually going through and structure this experience so that other people can relate. Third, I wanted to document this so I can follow up when I do recover. Reminder, I'm still injured and dealing with this issue 9 months in. Everyone's timeline is different, and based on other herniated disc stories that I've looked at, I might have another year or so to go. Man, I just want to be healthy and pain-free again. And I know a lot of people that also have this injury want to feel the same way. And as a final point, I want to say that I'm not a doctor or a medical professional, so my experience should not be taken as professional advice. I know how my body is and how it's reacting to this injury, so anything that I've been doing both to test my limits and try to recover are done at my own risk. So you can take what you want out of this video and apply it at your own risk. So thanks for watching me rant a little bit about having a broken back. If you'd like to support this channel as I continue putting out content, you can give this video a like, leave a comment if you have something to say, and subscribe to stay in the loop for any future content that I make. So that's it for this video. I'm out. Bye-bye.